Okay. Yes, sir.
Om Gam Ganapate Namaha. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwarah, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Akhanda Mandalakaram, Vyaptam Yena Characharam, Tatpadam Darshidam Yena, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Vigneshwaraya Namaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Namaste to one and all. Am I audible?
Yes. Yeah.
Today is a great day. Today is Sri Rama Navami. Every incident in our Itihasa are filled with messages for life. Ram is a person who teaches many things to how to run a kingdom or how to run a family. Every character in the Itihasas are a treasure of knowledge. Just to say about Hanuman, he is a symbol of humility. Jai Sri Ram. With pranams to Sri Ram, I would like to venture to talk few words on Dhruva Charitham, which you have come to listen today. Pranams to all. When Satish ji mentioned to tell the story which is known to all of you, and that too for about half an hour, I was really afraid. Somehow, taking some courage, I am trying to do some justice to my assignment. My story is based on one described in Bhagavatam Moolam. And as narrated by Shukha Maharshi, so there could be some deviations from what you have heard due to the versions followed by me. It's a powerful story of sincere determination which is necessary to achieve success and to be great. It starts with from the 8th chapter of Skanda 4. Uttanabada, the king, had two wives, Suniti and Suriji. The king liked Suriji more, and Dhruva was the son of Suniti. One day, King Uttanabada was caressing Suriji's son, Uttama, by keeping him on his lap. Dhruva, who came here, also wanted to have the warmth of the king. The king did not encourage the same. Seeing Dhruva approaching the king, Suriji told Dhruva arrogantly that Dhruva does not deserve this. And if at all he wants to have this pleasure, he must pray to God, Lord Vishnu, and take birth in her womb and come back again. Hearing these words, Dhruva became very angry. He looked at the king. King was silent. Dhruva left the palace crying aloud and in angry towards his mother. Queen Suriji lifted the boy and she came to know what has happened from the inmates. Instead of filling his mind with vengeance, Suriji told that whatever the stepmother has told him is absolute facts, and he should try to do what has been told by the stepmother. Hearing this, Dhruva, with determination, took a bold decision that he would go to the forest and do penance until he could see Lord Vishnu. Dhruva walked into the forest. He met the great sage Narada. Narada asked the boy where he was going and why. Dhruva explained that he wants to see Lord Vishnu. Narada tried his level best by telling him that it is very difficult to do such a penance and that he should go back and accept the reality and considering this as the gift of God. Narada was testing his patience, testing his determination. Seeing the sincerity of Narada, Narada smiled and decided to guide him. He taught meditation, discipline, concentration, and devotion. He also gave him a mantra, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. He also taught him how to meditate on the beautiful form of Lord Vishnu. Dhruva went to the forest and started his meditation. First month, he took only fruits once in 3 days. Second month, he took only dry leaves, that also once in 6 days. Third month, only water, once in 9 days. Fourth month, he took only breath, once in 12 days. On the 5th month, he held his breath and stood on one leg. The pressure of his toe had a great impact on the earth. The universe felt its effect. It started choking. All the demigods went to Brahma and explained the situation. Brahma took all the demigods to the Lord and explained what is happening and requested him to save them from this great danger. Lord Vishnu pacified them, telling them he knew the reason and he will do the needful. Lord Vishnu appeared before Dhruva. Dhruva could not see the beautiful form on which he was meditating. He suddenly opened his eyes and saw the Lord standing in front of him, shining with divine brilliance. But Dhruva could not open his mouth. He stared at the Lord and was unable to speak. Seeing the situation and feeling the compassion, Lord Vishnu touched the cheek of the boy with his conch shell. Immediately, Dhruva was able to speak, and he began offering beautiful prayers known as Dhruva Stuti. I think we could see the Stuti and its significance from the verses given by Satishji recently. These prayers gives the source of universe and the giver of wisdom and also the protector of the devotees. Dhruva realized that he had come here for getting something which is of material value, of which is very small. And he forgot the greater value of getting merged with the Lord. Seeing the situation of the boy, Bhagavan blessed Dhruva that he would become a king and would rule the kingdom for about 36,000 years. Bhagavan also blessed that Dhruva would do a lot of great sacrifices and charities and would enjoy material benefit. Finally, would go to the planet from where there would be no return. Bhagavan returned to kingdom. Dhruva was very unhappy that instead of asking for liberation, he asked for material benefit. When he returned home, he got a rousing welcome and got the love and blessings from everyone. Dhruva became the king, and he was a very powerful king. He ruled the kingdom for the welfare of the people. However, a tragic event occurred. His younger brother Uttama went for hunting, where he was killed by an Yaksha in the mountains of Himalaya. While searching for his son, even Surji also died in the forest. When he heard about the death of his brother, Dhruva got really angry and he wanted to take the revenge. He marched with the army and attack the Yakshas. And he started killing the attendants of Kubera. In the fierce battle, he killed a lot of Yakshas. The Yakshas came in numbers, but he killed all of them. Seeing the anger, Swayambhu Manu, who is the grandfather of Dhruva, came there with his sages. He told him that what he is doing under anger is not the right thing. For the mistake of one Yaksha, he should not kill the innocent. He should control his anger and he should follow the scriptures and those given in the literature. Dhruva listened to Swayambhu Manu carefully and realized that anger has gone too far. He stopped the battle. Seeing that Dhruva has listened to his grandfather and has stopped the war, Kubera himself appeared before him and offered a boon, whatever asked for by Dhruva. Dhruva didn't want anything from him. He only said that he should be able to remember the God all the time. And he should be devoted to Lord Vishnu. Kubera blessed him and he disappeared. Dhruva continued ruling his kingdom for many years. And seeing the able nature of Dhruva, Uttanabada gave the kingdom to Dhruva and went to the forest for Vanaprastha. Eventually, the time came for Dhruva to leave the world. A divine celestial vehicle arrived to take him to the eternal destination. Just before ascending the celestial vehicle, Dhruva remembered his mother. Suddenly, he saw his mother going ahead in another vehicle. Dhruva ascended and became Dhruva Nakshatra, a pole star. Unlike other stars that move across the sky, the pole star remains steady and constant. The story of Dhruva teaches us many important lessons. Let me start with the characters and its relevance. Dhruva is a symbol of determination and wounded ambition. In the corporate world, it represents young professional seeking recognition. Suriji is toxic critic, ego-driven criticism, toxic leadership, or biased managers. Sunidhi is a mentor, wisdom and ethical guidance. Mentors who guide ethically. Uttanabada, weak leadership, passive managers, avoiding conflicts. Narada Muni, he is a transformational coach for leadership trainers. Now, let me go through the incidences one by one. What happened? Suriji insults Dhruva. Rejection, comparison, neglect. What it happens? It triggers ego and anger. In the corporate world, many people are overlooked promotion, undervalued in spite of talents, excluded from the leadership. This pain can destroy you or ignite ambition to prove. Dhruva, choose for transformation. Sunidhi, wise advisor, does not fuel revenge. Tells Dhruva to seek the grace of Vishnu. In the corporate world, an advisor should tell to develop competence and character. Dhruva leaves the palace. Dhruva takes full responsibility and proceeds with clear action plan to achieve what he wanted. In the corporate world, one should look for skill building, more learning, and achieve mastery. Never blame about your bosses. Narada is a transformational coach. In the corporate world, what he does on Dhruva, he checks whether he wants to do something for a revenge. He also checks his maturity level and also finds his determination level. The same way, we should check, an advisor should check, or the mentor should check the maturity level and the determination level of the corporate employees. And the mantra, Narada gives mantra to Dhruva. He tells him how to meditate and the discipline, etc. What does it do? What is it to the corporate world? Leadership framework. Clear goal, daily practice, focus, away from distraction, and guidance from an expert. Students need teachers, professional needs mentors. Realization. Dhruva wanted material pleasure, kingdom, etc. Finally, realized that something is there more than that. What is it in the corporate level? We follow money, we follow status, we follow recognition, we follow power. But we have to realize that there is something more. That is, inner fulfillment is greater than external success. Higher value fades lower material desires. Dhruva's rule of anger, the entry of Swayambhu Manu. Swayambhu Manu teaches emotional control. Even knowledgeable and spiritual people can fall into anger, ego, and revenge. Manu tells, stop the war and killing the yakshas, innocent yakshas. Anger would lead to criticism, to action which are against regulations. Anger would hinder self-realization. Anger would destroy wisdom. Wisdom in recognizing the situation and taking corrective steps. If calm, you will be able to take steps which are correct. Another classic example of knowledgeable people falling into emotional control is the story of Parikshit. He fell into he lost his emotional control for a small requirement of his body, that is thirst. The rest is known. This can happen in our family conflicts, workplace disputes, etc. Self-control is true strength. Final attainment. Dhruva represents stability in the changing world. Today, everything is changing. Technology, careers, etc. We need values, faith, discipline, and devotion to make our life steady. What are the lessons we learn which is relevant to modern life? Convert pain into strength. Develop determination aligned with purpose. Convert humiliation into motivation. Seek guidance. Develop focus. Control emotions. Seek higher value. What is Manu represent? M for mindfulness. A for assess impact. N for use your language neutrally. U for universal goal. Now, Bhagavata Purana, you must be thinking, is Purana, that is, it has happened long time back. Purana is Pura Navayidi. It is applicable even now. I'm sure you would have heard about two famous personalities. One is J.K. Rowling. The other one is Walt Disney. J.K. Rowling, you're all aware, in 1990, she was a secretary. She was sacked because she was daydreaming. From 1990 to 1997, she lived in utter poverty. But she had tremendous determination. She envisaged Harry Potter. And today, from zero, her net worth is 13,000 crores. Another story is that of Walt Disney. He was bankrupt in 1921. And when he died in 1966, again, he had $150 million. Valued today, it is again around 13,000 crores. Let's all become a Dhruva. A person who converts pain, rejection, etc. into unstoppable focus to become successful in today's stressful and competitive world. I started this story with touching the greatness of Sri Rama. Let me conclude by comparing Sri Rama with Dhruva. Both had shown identical qualities. Number one is steadfastness and perseverance. Both showed immense mental fortitude to stick to their goal, and they overcome hardship. Renunciation of worldly power. Voluntarily gave up the royal comfort for higher cause. Fearlessness. Dhruva was not afraid of animals, and Ram was not afraid of Rakshasas and devils. Compassion and forgiveness. Unwavering devotion to follow the path of Dharma. It's a great blessing that we could talk about the two great model personalities, Dhruv and Ram, to learn great lesson for life and also for personal, professional life. I hope I could do some justice to my assignment. Whatever I have mentioned here are taken from various sources, and nothing is of mine and nothing is original. If there are some mistakes, kindly ignore. Pranams to all. Purnamada, Purnamidam, Purnat Purnamudachyade, Purnasya Purnamadhaya, Purnameva Vasishyade. Pranams to all. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you, Anandji, for the story and the significance in the outer world, in the modern world, and we will try to correlate these things also with the significance of the inner meaning that we are going to look at now, in the sense of the characters mapping into the various internal, what do you call it, the significance of the internal powers that we possess, which basically the whole of Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad-Gita translates into the igniting of that power. Those powers by tapping the power of the self. That is the spiritual significance of these, the wisdom of Bhagavad-Gita, as well as the connected stories in the Bhagavatam. So we are going to now look at those significances in relation to the characters, and then see how they represent various aspects of your psyche, and how we, through the wisdom that we have gained, we gain through the Bhagavad-Gita, also tries to tell us how we correlate all these things, such that we can apply it in the way that Anandji was now speaking about, in the corporate world, in the outside world of work, etc. So let us now dive deep into this mapping of the analogical mapping of characters and the story's significances. I'll try to make it as brief as possible so that it sticks to our mind. And similarly, when we are going through the rest of the stories, you will find there is a lot of correlation between the several characters, the storylines, and the analogies, such that you will actually see a great mosaic of the Bhagavata being laid on before us, and we get that we can actually see that these stories are not just random explanations of events in the outside world, which probably some of us or some people may not be able to logically correlate it with with rational thinking. But then that is not what the Bhagavata story is meant. It was meant to tap the power of the self, to connect with that power of the self, to realize that self within us. That was the prerogative of the writer. And then the characters were evolved through various stories across the great epic of Bhagavad. So let's now look at this Purana, the Purana of Bhagavad. Let us quickly go through what the story represents. There are two ways, two things, two paths that all of us can take. The choice before us is the path of pleasant, which is prayas, and the path of good, which is the shreyas. So the prayas and shreyas are two paths. If you look at any opportunity in your life, any situation in your life, and the choices that you make to select the paths that you want to take, there will be two always. And those two are the path of pleasant and the path of good. Of course, there are gray shades of gray in between, and the more you tend towards the path of the good is basically what progress in life is all about. So, but there are many situations in which we tend to spread out and move between these two things. In the sense, we try to place our feet in both these boats. There is confusion in our minds. There is cognitive tension within our minds. that cognitive tension, if you are able to recognize that cognitive tension itself, that is the first step towards identifying what is wrong, or if there is something wrong, and then trying to take the path of the good. So there are some people who actually keep on doing bad things without even worrying about it. There is no cognitive tension. You cannot change. The moment you start doing bad things, and then you get the feeling of conscience within us pricking, that is when the process of change starts. Many of us are in this kind of situation. This path of pleasant is characterized by the taste for instant pleasures, sensual pleasures, instant gratifications. And it is also about, satisfying your intellectual curiosities and your, kind of intellectual orientation in terms of, saying that you are right and I am right and all those things. So arrogance and also flamboyance to show off, as well as, everything is rooted in selfishness. So selfishness, flamboyance, arrogance, gratification, and pleasures, seeking pleasures, etc., are basically what is the path of the pleasant. The path of the good, on the other hand, is the application of prudence for goodness, fortitude, humility, austerity, and ultimately selflessness. So these qualities, when we actually bring it into our thoughts and actions, then it becomes the path of good. So it is not about being right or wrong, etc. It is about this what you call as the value systems that we bring forth into our life, such that there is a greater benefit that we accrue to the society. Now, when you are in doubt, or you actually oscillate between these two, your mind is in two modes. The path of pleasant appears to be the best for those kind of people, and it is also the highest success that they think that they are achieving. That is a gross result. That is gross thinking, actually. Whereas the path of good is very subtle in orientation, and it actually provides for a stable orientation of our intellect and mind, equanimity and equipoise. It helps you to develop equanimity and equipoise. Those are subtle values that we need to develop. So these are the two sides to the coin. Now, the mind is actually in tension when you are torn between these two paths. The mind that is torn between these two paths, there is a conscience that comes in and then tells us that, look, this is the better path. That is basically what gives us that mental agitation, when you are actually torn between these two things, these two sides. For you to develop the right sense of what the goodness is all about, you need to actually develop your mind with a firm footing, a determination to succeed. And that this requires discipline, austerity, and persistence. Those are again mental qualities that you have to bring forth. Discipline, austerity, and persistence to stick to the path of good and not fall for the path of the pleasant. It takes practice. It takes practice. And therefore, you need to undergo a lot of hardships to actually come to that state of mind, which is a determination to be on the path of the goodness. if you look at the path of the pleasant, what happens is this, in Bhagavad-Gita also, it was mentioned that the pleasures actually arise in the senses. The pleasures arise in the senses, subsequently transferred to the mind. So the pleasures rise in the senses and are killed in the senses. That is what the Gita teaches us. What does it mean? It means that when we run after pleasures, if you try to satisfy the pleasure, after some time, you will not feel like having it. Like, for example, typical simple examples that often everybody cites, like eating an ice cream, for example. One ice cream, good. Second ice cream, okay, still enjoyable. Third, maybe, yes. Fourth, by that time you reach the fourth ice cream, you start feeling uncomfortable. And ultimately, you may, fifth, sixth, and all, you may actually start vomiting, or you may even be agitated at seeing an ice cream. So what happened to that? It is all the senses actually started consuming it and then get satiated. The senses get satiated, and that is transmitted to the mind, and then you start rejecting it. So this satiation, or we can actually equate it to the burning away of your need for pleasures through the senses. The senses die. The senses die because it is overfed with these experiences. And not only that, sometimes you may also feel guilty consciousness playing your mind. Of course, not on these kind of the eating things, but in general, when you actually start going after the pleasures and you enjoy a lot of it, after that you start feeling, guilt consciousness. So ultimately, you actually are plagued by this guilt consciousness. That is the result of the choosing the path of pleasure, the praise, and ultimately mind gets stuck in these kind of situations where it is burnt in the senses, or ends in ignorance and guilt and the prick of conscience, etc. Whereas when we are focused with determination and discipline in practicing the austerities required for meaningful life, persisting with it, the results are sustainable, results in sustainable success. Providing us lasting happiness and ultimate success. And this is basically the story of Dhruva in terms of the inner revolution that we need to bring forth. So here, these elements of psychoanalytical happenings within us, we can look at it through the map of characters. We have the characters Uttanapada. The word means of extended legs or spread out legs, or extended legs. Pada legs, Uttana, spread out. This really represents vacillation, or one foot in both camps kind. That is basically what is represented by Uttanapada. Uttanapada, who is drawn between Suriji and Suniti. Suriji, drawn between Suriji and Suniti. Uttanapada, two wives represent. One, Suriji, of radiance, beauty, and of expressions, appearing pleasing. Basically, it is representing the selfish aspects of our mind. And Sunidhi is the well-conducted, well-behaved, discretionary capabilities within our mind, showing and meaning genuine goodness. So we have two, the mind, which is facilitating. Uttanapada has two wives, the goodness and the selflessness and the selfishness, drawing us. Suriji has got a son. The result of Suriji is the feeling of excellent, feeling very good, of feeling of the wrong, false feelings of excellence, etc. of pleasure-seeking tendencies. That is Uttama. And Dhruva, fixed, determined, stable, unchangeable, lasting, certain, etc., shows the faith and determination within our mind that we bring forth, such that we are not vacillating. The Dhruva within us represents that. Our tendency of the mind to be hardworking, focused, determined towards the path of goodness. Narada is the cosmic instigator that is within us, everyone's mind, as the inner debate, the conscience within us. Initially, actually preventing us, the conscience masquerading as consciousness, that power masquerading as consciousness may even tell you, no, it's okay, don't do that. The other one is very difficult, so let us take the easy path. That kind of a, what you call, that mind might tell you like that. That is that Narada aspect playing tricks on it. But then ultimately, if you are fixed like Dhruva, determined, then you will stick to what is required. And that same Narada, the conscience aspect will take more power and tell you what is to be done. And therefore, Narada, Dhruva goes to the forest, and then all those tapas and austerities that he takes represents that aspect of consciousness, ultimately guiding you towards what is required. And then Dhruva meets with Vishnu, the all-pervasive, the infinite powers. All the powers that are within us gets connected with those inner powers. The power, the ultimate power of which, the self, that is the Atman within us. Now, there is also the story of Uttama being killed by the Yakshas. Yaksha represents the ghost or spirit or apparitions that come about, the kind of tendencies of instant gratification that appear to be giving us success and happiness. Appearances. That is the ghosts or Yakshas. And Suruji, the tendencies for pleasures was skilled in forest. That was the story, which talks about the pleasures being consumed in the senses. The pleasures arise in the senses and are consumed in the senses. So says the Upanishads. Bhagavad-Gita also talks about that, I think in chapter 3, then 5, and many other places, the reference to the senses being the origin of pleasures as well as the depth of pleasures. The fire, anything that actually the energy, the physical energies that come out from us to do our work, etc., and then get satiated in it, and therefore we feel tired, is the fire, is represented as fire in the Upanishads. The sun, moon, and the fire. The sun is the energy of the consciousness, or the reflected energy of the self. But that self, which is giving every one of us the enlivening power, initially gets reflected in our mind. The moon, represented as moon, mind is the moon, and then expresses through the self, the fire, as the fire. So sun, moon, and the fire are three representations for the consciousness, the mind, as well as and the physical body. That fire is what consumes all the selfish and the activities, thoughts and activities geared towards the body. That is what is represented by the story element, which talks about Suriji getting consumed or being killed in the forest fire, while she went in search for Uttama. So when we actually go in search for the pleasures of the senses or the instant glories, when we go in search for them, ultimately we get consumed in the fire. So the Suriji within us is what actually is getting consumed in the fire. So this is how the story of Dhruva pans out through the characters. Each character in the story of Dhruva is named to represent something within us. So you can actually now reflect on this map, and you can see how these characters play out within our minds. All the stories are going to be like this. So it is a question of, now getting used to these kind of, the characters mapping into these inner powers or inner nature or inner powers. We have seen the same thing in the story of Daksha, and now we have seen a similar mapping out in the story of Dhruva. Likewise, we are going to see a few more stories. So this is the inner significance of the Dhruva Charitham. And there is one more thing that we need to look at, which is about Dhruva. After all his austerities, the tapas austerities, he was blessed with the vision of Vishnu, blessed with the vision of Vishnu, that whenever we engage in austerities of any kind, whether it is in spiritual or whether it is in material world, to map it into the material world, all the difficulties that we undergo, all the hard work that we take, all the determination with which we do hard work, and practice, reflection, and then doing things for the betterment of the society. That is basically in the Bhagavad-Gita also. This process of inspiration was mentioned in the Bhakti Yoga. Sreyohi jnanam abhyasat jnanat dhyanam vishishyate dhyanat karmabala tyagas shantiranandara. That, practice. Mere practice is much better than that will be actually abhyasat jnanam, knowledge. You have to know what you are doing and then practice. Not only know and practice, but also reflect on what it is so that you can apply that in practical solutions or challenges that you face. Not only for yourself, but also for the benefit of the whole world. Karma bala tyaga. So that karma bala tyaga is the ultimate goal, and through which you attain peace and happiness. So this is basically the process. And this process Dhruva took these processes to the hilt, and then he was able to connect with that self, the Vishnu, the all-pervasive Vishnu, all-pervasive self. He was able to connect. Now, all of us are actually living in the self, but hardly few people connect with the self. Others connect with the body, mind, and intellect and think that is the identity. But only very few people realize the infinitude of the self and connect with it. Dhruva was one person. And the moment he connected with the infinitude that the self is, he became a pole star. That significance also, I will come to that. But before that, then that enlightenment that you get when you connect with the self, the enlightenment that you get when you connect with the self, is represented by, it is shown as in the story as Vishnu touching Dhruva's cheek with the conch sound, the origin of the melodious sound of Vishnu, the melodious sound of infinitude. The melody of infinitude, that is the conch sound. The melody of infinitude will touch you. The moment the melody of infinitude touches you, it sparks knowledge and wisdom, the thirst for knowledge and wisdom, which conquers everything. That is what is represented by Vishnu appearing before Dhruva and touching him with the conch on his cheek, and thereby liberating Dhruva from the limitations of what you call ignorance. And as a return for that connection, gratitude, what Dhruva did was Dhruva immediately sang in praise of the self. It is a perfect eulogy on the self that Dhruva delivered. And that eulogy of the self is given full in this story of Dhruva, basically from the 6th to 17th verses of the 9th chapter of the 4th skanda. Dhruva's eulogy on the self, or it is called as the Dhruvastadi. It is famously known as the Dhruvastadi. 12 verses of Dhruva's wisdom on the self. That is a knowledge of the self, actually. This is knowledge of the self is the ultimate goal of the Bhagavad-Gita. And that knowledge of the self is encapsulated in 12 verses and delivered to you in a very simple form, through the wisdom expressed by a 6 or 7-year-old child. That is true. That is basically, I thought that we should actually take a look at it. That is why I actually posted that in terms of the knowledge of the self, as explained in the 12 verses. And this is, I had posted that yesterday. You can actually look at each one of those verses and their meaning in terms of connecting with the self. Ultimately, I would summarize that in probably six lines, which is about the self is the enlivener, masquerading within us as the I. That is that power that makes us to say I, me, etc. That I, me, who is that? That is the self. You may say I am Satish. That means outside, in the outside world we talk about that name. It is not the name and the physical form. The name and physical form is there because of that inner power, the life energy within us, and that is basically what is giving us the power to say or think in terms of a kind of a loop, and then say I, referring to myself. That referring to myself is the I. That I, the power. That it is not that saying I is not that. That particular I has been enlivened, and that is the reason why we are able to talk about us. So that power, which is what ignites knowledge, because that is the power which is, maybe some call it as consciousness, but consciousness is also of the physical world. This consciousness ignites, or it is that first stage or window through which we are able to acquire all the knowledge in terms of understanding things through the senses, mind, etc. So that ignites knowledge. And to be foolish about, or to be selfish and not considering this power within, and get completely encased in the BMI, think that BMI is me, that is foolish. And this connecting with the self is the joy of inspiration, leading to perfection. And it gives you also the complete connectivity to whatever you are thinking in terms of doing things, that complete mindfulness, complete focus of mind, state of flow where you actually forget about everything and you become united with the self. Unity in diversity, whatever be the flaws of thinking within your mind, if you are able to completely focus and get it into one strand in trying to do what you are doing, that is the state you are nearest to the self. You become united with the self. And in among the diverse thinking and other kinds of distractions that occur within our minds, this self is the eternal gateway to every knowledge that we acquire. And it is the one basis on which all of us are rooted, the substratum of our life. That is the self. So if we can think about this self, realize this power within us, then a lot of things can happen in the material world in terms of value systems that we put forth in our thinking and action, in terms of the confidence and capabilities that we express, so that we don't fall behind and we can, have belief in ourselves, etc. So this is the summary of the Dhruva story. So before concluding, I would like to actually play the Dhruva story every one of us, let's listen to that being chanted. I will also display the slogas on the screen for your listening. As you listen to the audio, you can look through that text also. So the 12 verses, let us chant. Maybe, some of you would have already chanted it in terms of Bhagavata discourses or saptahams and all, if you have attended or, listen to that. But if you have not, then let us, for the first time in our life, actually chant the Dhruva Stuti, a stuti that was actually, attributed to Dhruva as child. Of course, Veda-Vyasa's wisdom. That is basically now what we are going to hear. So let's listen to that. First, I will be showing 3 slogas and the pointer to the meaning in terms of the self. So let's listen to that. I'm going to now start playing that. There's some sort of an issue.